Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome to a new reaction. This is ranking every FNAF theory ever made by TDreads. So yeah, this video, I mean, for a video with that kind of title, I expected it to be a lot longer than just an hour long. So I generally don't know what to expect from this one. But yeah, so this was suggested to me by several people, in fact, on my Discord server. The first being random internet user 11037, and the next being Mort Bobbius. And I mean, thinking about it, like, what is the, okay, so I'm honestly, wondering, which theories they're going to be talking about, because again, I expected, if this is every FNAF theory that's ever been, I expect it to be longer. And of course, the chapters are no help. It's just low tier, low mid tier, and yada yada yada, stuff like that. So I honestly wonder how far back are they going. I'd imagine, just for the sake of, popularity, they'd be talking about, FNAF theories from from game theory. So are they going to be including the very first one Matt did, where before he even really knew what what FNAF was even being, and he kind of theorized that it was based off of a real murder that happened at a Chuck E. Cheese restaurant? I'm honestly curious here to see how far back and how deep this video actually does go. So I guess we should probably get this thing started then. So yeah, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason. Corner video will lead to my Let's Play of the day. And if you like this video or any other video that I make, I'd very much appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to my channel, because almost 3/4 of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, and I'd very much like that to change, because my next big goal is hopefully at 10,000 subscribers. And if you want to support me but don't feel confident about becoming a YouTube or Patreon member, feel free to use the Super Thanks option underneath all of my videos. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Over the years, there have been hundreds and hundreds of FNAF theories.
Yes.
Virtually anything in this franchise has dozens of theories to explain it. But with so many theories, the question comes up: which are the best? I recently gathered a panel of people who theorize about FNAF for a living, all with different beliefs and a huge amount of franchise knowledge. Stick around to see where your favorite theory falls on our list. Now let's kick things off by weighing the evidence of the low-tier theories.
Warning, FNAF is a franchise that relies heavily on subjective interpretation of depicted events. This is not an objective tier list, but an average of beliefs from a group of people who are highly educated in the series. Yay!
Again, actually, I think about it. I think that's something I said on the last video I did involving FNAF, and it's that if the series ever actually started making sense, or the theories, were actually answered, I'm pretty sure that would be a signal that the franchise was ending, because it's basically a perpetual motion device fueled by its own confusion.
First tier. Instead of an F to S format, our list was made by averaging out the theorists' ratings for a theory on a scale of 1 to 5. The theories in the first tier simply have no strong evidence pointing towards them. Very few things in FNAF are overtly deconfirmed, but we'll be prioritizing theories that have a greater variety of evidence to be higher up on the list. First up, Pigtail Beth. This is the theory that the pigtail girl from this minigame in FNAF 4 is Elizabeth, the sister of the minigame's protagonist.
Oh god, I remember that. Man, yeah, that is an older one. I mean, even just thinking about it, even for that one, even if it was true, I don't know if it would really affect that much. I mean, granted, we do know that Elizabeth died, but yeah, the whole question up in the air is, did she die first, or did she die after? Again, so many questions.
It's understandable at first glance. The girl has an appearance that's very similar to Circus Baby, including bright green eyes and 2 large pigtails. However, a problem arises with this being the sister character, and that's that she ends her dialogue with the crying child by saying, "See you at the party," which is a very strange thing to say to your brother if the party is several days away and you live under the same roof. Mike CEO. This is the idea that...
Okay. Yeah, okay, yeah, that does... Okay, never mind.
Michael Afton survived the fire of FNAF 6 and goes on to become the CEO of the Pizzaplex.
What?
This theory hinges on another, Mike's survival, but more importantly, doesn't make a lot of sense for Michael's character with our current knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, granted, like, if, like, what game theory was suggesting was that in the franchise, Mike, as in Michael Afton, and Mike, as in Mike Schmidt, were two different characters, and Mike Schmidt's sort of, like, character arc was a lot shorter and than we envisioned it originally being, maybe if you moved some stuff around? But yeah, again, that doesn't really make that much sense.
Michael and Henry seem to want to put an end to Afton, his characters, and the entire Fazbear legacy. With Michael's motives in FNAF 6, it doesn't seem like him to raise the brand back up, especially when there is still evil afoot in the brand, as shown in VR, AR, and Security Breach. This seems like the work of somebody else. Lefty Fredbear. This theory posits that Lefty is a repurposed Fredbear. Some evidence includes a similar jaw design and the suit having 5 fingers, as well as the ability to store stuff inside of it. Obviously, Fredbear was a Springlock suit, so there's a connection there. I think it's fair to say that Lefty would be the Fredbear of the Rockstar group, but I just don't see any evidence for him actually being like repainted or an actual repurposed Fredbear from...
I mean, granted, that would make a certain sort of sense, narratively speaking, but again, yeah, like, from everything we've seen, it's never really been hinted at that, the rock stars are anything more than just, a one-off type of band used just for, Pizzeria Simulator.
From the FNAF 4 location. All the rock stars have the same design features I mentioned, and it seems like Henry only created Lefty for the purposes of FFPS. Henry Scooper. Was the Scooper in the basement of Ruin built by Henry Emily? It is around the same area as the FFPS burners, and we know Henry has access to the blueprints for the Scooper because of the Insanity ending, but some strange questions pop up if this is the case. For one, why does this Scooper look so different from the previous one if Henry has the blueprints right in front of him?
Well, I mean, he could have just, changed it, altered it, improved the design. I mean, from everything we saw in, like, Sister Location, the Scooper in that game very much only operates in, like, one direction. It doesn't seem like it can twist or pivot or, like, basically do anything. Like, it's a very rigid thing, and if you wanted it to be more useful, it doesn't seem like there's any way to, like, maneuver it. You have to maneuver everything like directly in front of it. So redesigning and maybe improving the Scooper to have some sort of like self-corrective capabilities, like it actually being like a fully articulated robot arm or something like that. I mean, that I could definitely see that as making sense.
And why would he build it to begin with? He overtly states in the Insanity ending that he has no idea how William traps life in this way. And the use of a Scooper seems unnecessary for his purposes in FNAF 6. There are better candidates. Golden Memory. This is the theory that Golden Freddy is not possessed by an actual spirit or spirits, but that instead is possessed by the agony memoryisms of those who suffered at the hands of the Freddys and Fredbear brand. Some problems with this include Happiest Day, where Golden Freddy is depicted as a child at the table in the same way the other 4 animatronics, who we know are possessed by children, are depicted.
I mean, Grant, it could be one of those things I could, imagine. Just sort of being like the in-game equivalent of like the rabbit from Into the Pit, being like being an agony creature or whatever. But
the Golden Freddy kid is possessed by a spirit in every other continuity, and the MCI minigames show us 5 dead bodies. You could also cite the gravestones having 4 of the MCI kids and then another mysterious grave off to the side as evidence for Golden Freddy being part of that group. Glam Edwin. This is the idea that Glamrock Freddy is possessed by Edwin Murray. To the best of our knowledge, Edwin Murray does not die at the Pizzaplex in the game's timeline.
Yeah, from everything we know, he dies in, like, literally the 70s, so depending on when Ruin actually takes place, like, that could be, a good 30 to 40 years afterwards.
He dies at MCM decades before that, if he's dead. The only piece of evidence I see for this is that Edwin in Secret in the Mimic feels regret over the way he missed out on time with his son David. Gregory, who looks similar to how an older David would have, might stir up some parental feelings of protection in him, but this type of motivation applies to many other characters.
Yeah, and also just how would it have happened? Like, and we know how like stuff like Remnant and Possession happens in this franchise. So like, how would Edwin's spirit have like gotten into Golden Freddy? I mean, again, like Edwin died decades ago, not even like in an animatronic. He died from an explosion and possibly rubble falling on him in his house.
Such as Henry or Michael. Logbook Uno. This is the theory that only one spirit is in the survival logbook. Respectfully, this makes no sense to me. Nobody victim. This is the theory that the bite victim is irrelevant to the wider lore. He possesses nothing and does nothing after the bite. This contradicts the 4 games 1 story hint that Scott left us to solve the series, and seems to make the I will put you back together line entirely pointless. Also would mean he's not in the logbook. Take cake to the children.
Yeah, granted, yeah, I can very much see why these are definitely the low tier theories, because like a lot of these are just like they're just like such nothing burgers.
Fredbear's. This is the idea that Charlie dies at Fredbear's. The Tickets to Fun guide, which is about the games, basically overtly claims she dies at Freddy's. Shattered Freedom. This is the theory.
I always assumed she died at Fredbear's too. But wait. Huh, okay. Yeah, that's something I never really thought about before.
Theory that a portion of the bite victim's soul is in Fredbear, and another portion is in FNAF World and Happiest Day. The opening of FNAF World seems to suggest that bite victim is confused and blind. The logbook seems to suggest he can't see, and he is altering the text in the logbook, just as the Golden Freddy suit alters your surroundings while in your presence. It makes more sense to us that the bite victim isn't split between the suit and the flip side, but that his soul, which is tied to the suit, is broken and lost. Think of it like he's constantly involuntarily dreaming. That's the best analogy I can think
that probably
of.
makes a lot more sense.
This implies that the bite victim never possessed anything, but instead helped orchestrate Happiest Day. The opposite of this seems to be the case. Bite victim is the one who we are told needs putting back together, and in the logbook, if you believe Logbook Duo, he is the spirit that's being guided by another. Bite victim saw a spring lock failure. This is the theory that the thing bite victim saw and misunderstood would be a spring lock failure. This is why he's scared of the suits. My problem with this interpretation is that this wouldn't really be a misunderstanding. He would be...
Yeah, he saw the suit hurt somebody. It's not really a misunderstanding. Actually, now that I'm thinking, okay, actually, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, did we ever actually figure out why the crying child was so scared of, you know, the animatronics in the first place? Like, did something actually happen? Or was it just more of a phobia sort of deal?
He's seeing it as the suit killing people.
Yeah.
And he would be correct. The suit is, in fact, killing people. The only possible interpretation for this that I can understand is that bite victim sees the spring locks as stomach teeth, and that's why Nightmare Fredbear has them. This doesn't seem to be a huge hint to help us solve the lore, though. He misunderstood teeth. I don't feel like this is the answer.
Yeah.
Blob DCI. Somehow the DCI returned. Cupcake Dog. Susie's dog possesses the cupcake. To be honest, I like this one. The way the cupcake acts in the movie is a bit like a dog. It jumps around and bites people. However, I have not seen suitable evidence to suggest that William Afton stuffed a dog inside of a cupcake.
Yeah, again, for the longest time, wasn't the theory that Mangle was actually possessed by a dog? Or is that, I think that was something that Game Theory said, wasn't it?
Mangle Dog. Same evidence as the last one, and I still like this one because Mangle's an actual dog-like animatronic. MatPat made this theory like 100 years ago and noted that Mangle has a garbled voice as well. almost like it's something with less cognitive function trying to speak. This idea was never expanded upon by Scott, though, aside from an interpretation of Fruity Maze. Andrew experiments. As of December 2025, Andrew's kinda cooked. However, if he were to exist in the games, and we haven't seen him before now, it would make sense for the vengeful spirit to be vengeful for a reason. Vengeful Spirit references the FNAF 4 experiments in dialogue and has the appearance of a young boy, so perhaps Andrew truly is in the games. However, there are certainly candidates who have more evidence in-game, and we'll be prioritizing them. Glitchbear Agony. This is the idea that Glitchbear from FNAF World is an Agony creation. FNAF World is tricky because Glitchbear's dialogue switches to being meta and about Scott Cawthon like halfway through the game. But his goal at the start is to put Bite Victim back together, which aligns more with other candidates.
God, isn't that just the thing? Like, I honestly do wish and hope that, like, at some point we get, like, you know, a FNAF World 2. Just because, like, it was and is just such a massive change for the franchise, even from back then, even now still. And like, just like what it means and what it meant are just, it's so confusing.
Will despise. This is the idea that William Afton actively hates his children. His characterization in the movies and FNAF 4-6 seems to contradict this. He goes out of his way to bring Elizabeth back when he doesn't need to do so at all. And now, this isn't me saying he's a great father who cares.
Not in the slightest.
I think there's something else going on there.
Yeah, love and, you know, whatever he's feeling are seemingly not mutually exclusive.
Something we'll get to later in the list, but sheer disdain simply isn't the case, at least not for most of his children. But what would make me disdainful is if you didn't subscribe to the channel right freaking now and leave your thoughts on one of the theories we've covered so far. Done? Good. Let's move on to the second tier. Second tier.
You know, I was just thinking, when he said he got like a bunch of other FNAF YouTubers to like look into this and share their thoughts, and that's how he's doing the rating. I really wish I could have heard, you know, some of their thoughts on these as well.
Jumping into the second tier, we'll start with interactive novel games. As of Secret of the Mimic, Tales games and Frights have largely been dismissed as not game canon. However, there's still a large audience that believes the interactive novels, particularly The Week Before, are canon, because the book is literally called The Week Before, as in the week before FNAF 1.
Which, okay, again, with the interactive novels being, you know, their one path in them is canon. Not everything in them is canon.
To wait for more information on this to make a decision, but if Return to the Pit is canon, holy mid, FFPS 2024 or 2015. Both of these dates feel skewed too far to one side to work. At the very most, 2015 is the year when FNAF 3 takes place. That would mean that there is a company making a parody of the FNAF brand while an official FNAF location is currently in development. This is a lot less likely than FFPS popping up years later. At the same time, FFPS taking place after 2024 is almost 40 years after the MCI, by which time Henry would have Omega Unk status. There's also evidence that FNAF VR or AR start happening around this time. It would be too many games crammed together in the same year. FNAF 1, 1989, or FNAF 1, 2000s. When it comes to 1989, the timeline of the FNAF 1 pizzeria and the dates don't line up with the pizzeria being open in that particular time.
Again, if I remember correctly, I think like a lot of the theories involving the date were based off the the paycheck you get at the end of the game.
While the 2000s date doesn't line up with the paycheck amount. Spark Victim. This is the idea that seeing the Bite Victim possess Fredbear is the reason William starts killing, to recreate the spark of life. However, Charlie's death, which likely takes place very early in the timeline, seems to be a crime of passion. with William not meaning for it to cause possession. He's not aware that the puppet is going to crawl out of the building. Eliza first. I feel like Elizabeth does die early,
yeah.
but having Circus Baby be the cause of the first death is strange because that animatronic is constructed as part of an operation to kill a shit ton of people.
Again, that is one of those things I talked about it before, and like obviously, ignoring the seemingly super advanced technology of the Funtime animatronics, it obviously does happen early in the timeline. I'm just trying to, but it can't be obviously the very first, but also I don't think like some people that the Funtimes were made. I don't think they were built being like sentient. The whole like remnant injection and stuff like that made them sentient later on was something that happened later. Presumably sometime after FNAF 1. So the sister location and babies could have existed for a while, at least in some form or another.
In Help Wanted 2, we see that Circus Baby's Pizza World is still having power supplied to it by the bunker in that Funtime Freddy Breaker Room level. If Circus Baby's Pizza World is being powered by the bunker, they must have been linked at some point. So the purpose of the bunker, which is sole experimentation, probably also related to Circus Baby's Pizza World. It makes no sense for Circus Baby and the bunker to be designed before William witnesses any possessions. Glitch memory. This is the idea that Glitch Trap is just the MCI agony memory of William Afton put into a video game. The series is shaping up to make Burn Trap, the Mimic, and Glitch Trap like the main antagonist. So I'm gonna go ahead and say this probably isn't gonna be the reveal.
Again, that's one of those things with just how like confusing things can be. Because when we first met Glitch Trap, I and a lot of other people were kind of under the assumption that it was like, oh, they used like spring traps like circuit boards or whatever to make the game, and that somehow transferred at least like a portion of William's soul into the code, and that's why Glitch Trap was a thing. And then the Mimic came along and kind of confused that. So like I still like the idea of Glitch Trap being like a digital copy of William, but but is Glitch Trap just straight up the Mimic or something made from the Mimic? Or it is so confusing right now.
Evan victim. No! MCI 87. Aside from an interpretation of the Save Them minigame, there was no evidence that the MCI happens in 1987. It doesn't happen there in any of the other continuities, and there was clearly a tragedy at the first Freddy's that closed it down. Now, the movie may be trying to tell us that Charlie dies at the first location and the MCI die at the second, but that's a debate for later on the list.
Yeah.
In terms of in-game evidence, there's not much. Henry Frightguard. Take a look at the sister location custom night ending. Eliza plush and Eliza speaker. This hinges on Eliza first being true. And also Elizabeth has no connection to Fredbear. But the dialogue of the Fredbear plush can be read as either a manipulative adult or a child who is not aware that they sound like a dickhead. Charlie plush and Charlie speaker. How did she get in there? Also...
Yeah, she's in the puppet, not in Fredbear. And why does that drawing of the Fredbear plush look so evil?
The logbook depicts the plush as Le Bad, which Charlie is not in the games, at least not towards the other dead kids. Cassidy plush. This is the idea that it's Cassidy in the plush, who either has already died or is communicating to the crying child through memories from inside the Golden Freddy suit that they're both sharing, if Golden Duo's true. There's no real evidence against the second interpretation, but Scott's just done nothing to point us here since FNAF 4, and Cassidy acts like she's not the plush in the logbook. Glitch Bear Cassidy. It doesn't make sense to me for Cassidy to be the one taking the initiative to put Bite Victim back together. That should be somebody else's prerogative. Mike not in 2. Mike sees Phantom Balloon Boy, so if they are truly hallucinations, he probably knows what they look like, and the guards in FNAF 1 and 2 are fired for the same reason. Shadow failures. Yeah. This has room to go up now, since the toys are Springlock suits in the movie, but For now, Phone Guy, in the call MatPat uses to prove this, is referring to multiple spring locks within the same suit going off, not multiple simultaneous suit failures. Princess Cassidy. This is the theory that Cassidy is the princess from Princess Quest. Very rarely does Scott remove file names. It's really strange for him to remove Cassidy, but not Charlie Door. We know that Security Breach was largely made without Scott's creative direction, so it's possible that the developers saw a Golden Girl character and thought that's just supposed to be Cassidy.
When in reality, it was supposed to visualize or be symbolic of like Vanessa or something like that, if I remember correctly. Again, there's a lot of FNAF lore and questions that I'd probably actually think about. I've probably forgotten more than I know.
Which Scott corrected after the release of the game. We'll have to wait for future releases to figure out what's going on here. Princess Avatar. The theory that the princess is not a supernatural entity at all, but just a game character. This has some counter evidence in that the arcade conspiracy guy insists that the princess will notice him if he glitches all the games.
I mean, granted, is that really, you know, the avatar itself, or is it because, you know, it's like some sort of like haunted connection or something like that?
And he does. Shadow Victim. Due to FNAF World and Follow Me, Shadow Freddy appears to be a malevolent force, saying, "I will eat your soul" in FNAF World. It's entirely possible that Shadow Freddy comes from the bite victim's death in some way, but I don't think it's his actual spirit inside of Shadow Freddy. We'll get into what exactly Shadow Freddy might be later on the list, but let's just say there are multiple types of possession in the FNAF universe, and I don't think Shadow Freddy is the soul-bound type. Either way, it doesn't make sense that the bite victim exclusively possesses Shadow Freddy. Now let's move on and see what the third tier has to offer.
Is this the one? I'm gonna guess, or at least hope, that this is the tier where the theories actually start getting good and start getting some weight behind them. Because right now, like, these past two have been more or less a lot of eh.
The theories in this tier have a good amount of evidence supporting them, but also a good amount of counter evidence. Follow Me 88. This would imply that Follow Me takes place before Five Nights at Freddy's 1, which is strange because the spirits in Follow Me go about getting some revenge on Afton by trapping him in the Springlock suit, and then they'd proceed to torture the Night Guard for no reason despite catching their killer.
Yeah, and you'd assume that, like, after that happened, they would have passed on or something like that, unless they knew he hadn't died because he was possessing the Springlock. Yeah, okay. But then on top of that, like, in the mini game, like, you see Freddy's is a lot more, well, not only is Freddy, the Freddy's, like, a lot more dilapidated, so with, like, leaks in the ceiling and all that sort of stuff, like, they were also torn apart. So who went back and fixed the animatronics?
The suits would also magically be repaired in time for FNAF 1, and the staff member would have boarded up the safe room without taking Springtrap out and just opened the restaurant with Springtrap in the safe room.
Yeah.
Cool. Yendo Agony. Yendo Remnant could also be equally as likely, just because the fun times and Remnant go hand in hand.
Yendo
now we're going to get into the theories that the panel considered fairly plausible. From here on out, everything has a solid amount of evidence. Tiers 4 and 5 just have more. So let's start with Vanessa Afton. This is the theory that Vanessa from Security Breach is literally William Afton's child, like in the movie. This obviously comes from her having similarities in appearance to Elizabeth, and from her third therapy CD, where we learn of her abusive father, Bill.
I don't know. Like, it turns out, yeah. Oh man, William just had so many kids. Again, like, I'm also kind of partial to the one theory where they were suggesting it's like, oh well, like whoever was like controlling Vanessa to try to like turn her into Elizabeth or something like that. But like, again, like, just another kid. Why not? It's gonna turn out that every kid that's died in this franchise was actually like one of William's illegitimate children, and that's why he killed them all, just so he wouldn't have to pay child support.
The issue preventing this from being higher on the list is that Glitchtrap literally takes over people's minds and makes them fill roles they otherwise probably wouldn't fill.
Yeah.
Even Vanessa herself, for example, is just a beta tester on the Help Wanted game who happens to fall into Glitchtrap's clutches. There is some evidence of Vanessa A coming from the AR emails, though, and V_A in the non-cut emails. Toys possessed. Any sort of DCI possession theory is kind of scuffed because we only get the one set of graves during the FNAF 6 ending.
Yeah, and then there was also, you know, the movie, which has also kind of thrown fuel onto the, which also kind of threw its own wrench in the works when it was saying that the only thing that was possessing, the only animatronic that was possessed in FNAF 2 was the puppet.
But we do know that parts of the withers were used to make the toys. If that is metal from the classics that contains the spirits, it's totally possible that some of the spirit's agony has gone into the toys. The thing that makes this lower on the list, though, is that this is not elaborated on at all by Scott, and unlike the classics, the toys are never shown to be haunted in other continuities.
Yeah.
Springlock banning 1983. This is the idea that the Springlocks were banned in 1983. The Springlocks are at use in Freddy's restaurants past this point in the other continuities, and are also in use at the sister location.
Yeah.
The theory hinges on a lot of other theories for success, like Eliza First or MCI 83. But if they were banned in 1983, it definitely wasn't due to the bite of 83, because that suit was already in animatronic mode. Princess Mimic. The princess character is a part of one of the 5 trillion mimic branches that are probably in the Pizzaplex. Yep.
Yeah, at this point, like, the mimic isn't a tree or anything, it's a bush. It just goes everywhere. The mimic shrub, that's it.
This could be Princess Vanessa. The theory that the princess is Vanessa. The princess clearly follows Vanessa's story, getting locked in a room with Glitchtrap and being in a help-wanted looking office. But it's unclear to what extent the princess is Vanessa, or if that's even possible.
I mean, granted, like, again, you do have to, like, in Security Breach, get all 3 of the games to get that one ending.
So this is still kind of unknown, and we're waiting on answers. Fright's fiction. There are many appearances from Fright's characters on game cabinets in Security Breach. And Fazbear Frights, the book series, shares a name with Fazbear's Fright, the horror attraction that deliberately makes Fazbear spooky. It's possible that Frights was a similar thing to Goosebumps in the FNAF universe. Except, like, historical fiction? This is a very possible theory, but the allusions to it would also be very subtle. These could also just be cute little Easter eggs. It's not confirmed. Basically,
you know, I mean, with them being Easter eggs, if it was just like 1 or maybe 2, I could see them being Easter eggs. But there are like so many of them on the cabinets. Like, honestly, like, it gets to the point where it's like, it's seemingly every single one is like a reference to a Fazbear Frights book almost. So I almost have to wonder, like, yeah, maybe the Fazbear Frights books are like stories published in universe by Fazbear.
Every theory about Shadow Freddy's origin.
God, yeah.
None of these imply that they are where Shadow Freddy comes from. This includes Take Cake, Save Them, and Foxy Go Go Go, and the like. They also don't imply that Shadow Freddy didn't come from there. FFPS Fredbears. Underneath FFPS, there are cardboard cutouts of Fredbear that were not from MCM. That's about it, aside from a headcanon that it would be convenient for Henry to save money by reusing his old property.
Yeah, I mean, I can very much see that, you know, that other, you know, that one being a lot more, realistic, because, again, like, it very much seems like, you know, while Fazbear is seemingly is famous for just building on top of their old things, like some sort of, like, long, ancient civilization is constantly building on its own ruins. Like, it very much seems, at least from what we've seen in Secret of the Mimic, that, like, that the MCM factory and its underground architecture are seemingly very much the bottom layer, where there's nothing deeper underneath.
Cassie knew Vanny. This is more of a prediction than a theory about the lore. Not much for or against it as of recording this video, but Cassie does literally get a chip implanted in her head during Ruin, so in the next game we could see her struggling with the Mimic's control. Mike's survival and Ellie's survival.
Yeah.
This would be chopped given the ending of FFPS, which 99% of the fans liked, but Leon Riskin has also been getting really sus lately, remastering a bunch of sister location music, including Michael's theme. And there is a bit of Mike's survival imagery in Curse of Dreadbear.
Yeah, oh yeah, the Flaming Foxy, yeah. But God, yeah, there is something coming around the corner. Something's going to be released this year, whether it's a brand new game or just a DLC for Secret of the Mimic. Something is going on, and he's been doing a lot of stuff.
With Foxy standing outside the graveyard. Gregbot. Holy peak. Created by MatPat and Thomas Theory, this is the idea that Gregory is an evil robot version of the Crying Child. I think MatPat is absolutely correct to compare Gregory and the Crying Child and draw similarities.
Yeah, I never liked Gregbot. I
don't think his appearance nor Vanessa's is just like a haha funny coincidence. And there is repeated language like "you're broken." Also, if Gregory is patient 46, the therapist is able to access data from outside the Pizzaplex confirming that he has real parents. So it would be kind of odd for him to be a robot if he has actual parents and data from like outside the Pizzaplex that the therapist can access. That's a hole in this theory. Glam Mike. This is narratively very fitting. It would be Michael's spirit living on and trying to protect a child that looks like his brother, atoning for the mistake he made so long ago.
Again, like I've talked about it before, but like the thought of like of any of the Glamrocks being possessed, like at the same time, like it wouldn't be out of, you know, the realm of possibilities. Again, this franchise is built on a foundation of robots being possessed by, you know, human children's souls and stuff like that. But at the same time, like I like the idea of the Glamrocks being, you know, sentient machines, and then they're just kind of all caught up in the, like, supernatural shenanigans that is, you know, Fazbear.
There isn't much for or against this theory right now, which is why it's here. It's just a possibility that we need to wait to see expanded upon.
Yeah.
Bite Victim saw the MCI. This is the idea that Bite Victim would have seen the MCI, and would mean that he saw Spring Bonnie murdering 5 kids and believed it was the character itself doing it.
Okay, I could definitely see that. It definitely would give a reason as to why he'd be scared of the animatronics. But at the same time, again, that kind of questions it. It kind of, you know, it's the whole thing of like questioning of like when did the Crying Child actually die, like in, you know, the order of events.
Not a man inside. That's the misunderstanding. This would imply MCI 83 and also imply that the investigation leading to the closure of Freddy's was happening while Fredbear's was still open. However, if this is true, it makes absolutely no sense for Scott to not have a Nightmare Spring Bonnie in the game, or to show the Crying Child being scared of a Bonnie suit specifically. Garrett Victim. There is more evidence for some theories and less for others.
Yeah.
Jeremy Fitzgerald and Bonnie Bullied and Jeremy from Help Wanted and the Help Wanted 2 player are all the same guy. These are interesting theories that need a bit more expanding on. The main points of evidence are the color palette similarities between Cassie and Bonnie Bully, the name similarities between the Jeremys, and the line about a Halloween mask laying on the floor in Help Wanted,
that looks
referencing
familiar.
the familiar mask in Help Wanted 2 that's found in Princess Quest. World meta. This is the idea that FNAF World is meta. I think this is undeniably true, but we are treating this as the theory that it's only meta, which we don't agree with.
Only meta? Like what? Okay, honestly, like what does that even mean?
Scott has heavily implied that it has lore significance. Follow Victim. What if the Crying Child soul starts following Michael around instead of being attached to the Golden Freddy suit? This could honestly explain the weird apparitions of Golden Freddy. Maybe it's not literally the suit appearing, but is instead the Crying Child showing Michael his biggest mistake. However, there's no direct evidence in-game to support this when compared to, say, Follow Cassidy or Follow Andrew or whatever, where it's the vengeful spirit attaching to William. MCI 83. I would actually argue this has the most in-game evidence out of the MCI date interpretations, if you exclude Into the Pit, because people don't know if that's canon, blah, 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 blah.
Oh god, again, like, I very much love, I want there to be, you know, I like Into the Pit. It's a fun game. It's something very different from the rest of the franchise. And honestly, I like it just being, you know, its own thing off to the side that just sort of exists and is there to have fun. And I'd like more stuff, you know, like that. But, like, at the same time, it has to be so complicated.
Pigtail Girl is already spreading rumors about deaths. Crying Child refers to the characters as his friends. Purple Guy is already depicted as a shadowy, creepy figure. And Crying Child is clearly disturbed about something going on with the Freddy's characters. However, in both the Silver Eyes and Fazbear Frights, the MCI happens in 1985. This also has the same issue as By Victim Saw MCI, obviously, where he should be scared of Spring Bonnie in particular and not Nightmare Fredbear or Fredbear. FFPS 2023. The main evidence for this is just the numbers at the end of the Henry tape.
Yeah.
But that could easily mean recording number 223 or anything else.
Yeah, again, because, like, I could very much, like, specifically, it's the fact that there's the missing 0. Like, I could see, like, if you were going to be doing a year, like, why only the year? Like, usually if you do that, you're going to also include, like, the month and, like, the date. Again, and also, why would you remove the 0? If this was the year, it'd be Henry would be thousands of years old, and he recorded this in the year 223.
Secure to Breach 2035. The Pizzaplex is highly advanced, and there is this poster of Faz Masquerade, which can be read to say 2035. Puppet Stuffed. Similar to MCI 83, this has a lot of evidence in-game. Namely, the puppet literally going around and binding the souls to the suits in Give Gifts, Give Life. Again, though, every other piece of information from all the other continuities we have suggests that Afton is the one orchestrating the suit stuffing. Mike Jeremy. I like this idea a lot less than Mike Fritz because it's weird that some random guy would come in on the last day when the job is more dangerous than ever. There is no evidence to link Mike with either in-game, aside from maybe the gravestone names from FNAF 6. Help Wanted Monster Story. The story from Ruin about the monster being kept in the basement is about Help Wanted, and Vanessa letting Glitchtrap leave through her. I think the listening and learning the lullaby part of the story better fits a story involving the mimic itself, like the endoskeleton, which we literally see trapped in the basement later. Gregory Elevator. This is literally the cliffhanger of the timeline currently, so we have no idea what to expect, but the change in subtitles is odd. Anyway, there's not much to go off here.
Yeah, again, what was it that it's the fact that, you know, like, it seems like the mimic might have cut off Gregory or something like that, and was, again, mimicking his voice?
Cassidy Redbear. This is the idea that Cassidy is the Redbear sprite. This hinges on other theories, like Cassidy being in FNAF World, Cassidy being in a Springlock failure, and Cassidy being the vengeful spirit. We kind of have to put this one here because it's a byproduct of a lot of other theories.
Yeah.
Retrofit and Unwithereds. With the recent FNAF 2 movie, this has come into debate again. The topic of contention is whether the FNAF 2 Withereds become classics, or are the same possessed animatronics that the MCI kids died in.
Again, so that very much depends on whether, like, if in the movie, the Withereds were their own separate things, like they were failed prototypes of the toys. Or, again, like, you have the originals, which then goes to FNAF 2, where they were trying to do something with them, and then went with the toys instead, and when that failed, they went back to the originals and brought them back to their original design. There's a lot. Actually, there's a lot of spaghetti here.
There's basically not a shred of evidence for either, aside from 1 point each. The Unwithereds have one appearance, possibly, in that Unwithered Freddy is the logo for Phazon and FFPS, and Phone Guy refers to the idea of retrofitting in FNAF 2 phone calls. That's about it as far as anything on these theories goes. Sister Location pre-FNAF 2 and 1. We know due to the ending of Sister Location Custom Night that the
I think you've gotten something a little weird here. This is the same thing twice.
The events of Sister Location are in some way tied to the spring trappening. It makes the most sense for the events here to take place after William gets himself in trouble and can't act anymore, which we know isn't the case in FNAF 2 because he's still doing crimes, and also isn't the case in FNAF 1 because the spirits are still out to get the guard. Now,
and the animatronics are still in one piece, very importantly.
we're getting into the fourth tier. These are theories that have more evidence than counter-evidence. Of course, not all of these are necessarily correct, because there are other theories that have a lot of evidence and little counter-evidence, but these are theories I wouldn't be surprised to find are true. Cassidy Receiver. This theory does make sense. I mean, just look at it. You have all the 5 MCI kids being freed, and this minigame is from before FNAF 4 came out. The part I struggle with, though, is the repeated Happiest Day imagery in FNAF 4, as well as the entirety of the FNAF World arc being about setting up the happiest day. The person we're setting up the party for is clearly the bite victim, because there are lines repeated by the weird psychic friend Fredbear Yellow Eyes that were said to the bite victim in the previous entry. I've fought in my head about this for a while, but the panel decided that 2 entire games pointing away from the Cassidy Receiver direction meant we had to give it the second spot.
Yeah. Toys Agony. Okay, never mind. Yeah, it's very much like, even if that was going to be the case, it seems to have very much been retconned.
Agony. The toys become more aggressive as the week goes on because of the immense amount of agony surrounding FNAF 2 and the DCI. This is kind of a way of animating the toys without the DCI souls literally being bound to them. And this is plausible, given the way we see Mangle moving about and save them, and the way Agony works in the extended continuities. A toy animatronic-looking Shadow Bonnie headass also comes to guard Agony in the FNAF AR game. Follow Me 93 and 94. When Follow Me takes place is entirely dependent on how long William stays in the back room for and what he's doing in Follow Me. If he's collecting for Molten MCI, 1993 and 1994 plus seem likely. Shared Past. This is basically the theory that Glitchtrap is making Vanessa and Elizabeth stand-in.
Yeah, this is what I said earlier.
He's either chosen her because she looks like Elizabeth and has a similar past, or because she looks like Elizabeth and he's fabricating a past in her mind. This fits in with other through lines from the Security Breach era that will be discussed later in the video.
Yeah.
Mangle Bite of 87. Mangle was one of the animatronics active on the day of the Bite of 87, and is part of the toy line, which was retired after the fact. Mangle...
And also has, the jump scare, and has, the biggest mouth out of any of the animatronics. Like, I know there's, all the theories and that, it was Toy Chica that caused the Bite of 87, again, especially, due to that, quote about, "Where's my beak," lodged in your forehead and stuff like that. That doesn't seem like a bite. That if that were me, that would be much more of the peck of 87.
Will draw big. Overall, pretty solid theory.
Yeah.
Jeremy Witch Story. This is the idea that the incident where someone escaped a witch and later returned to fight it refers to Jeremy, or the player of Help Wanted 2. He survives an encounter with Glitchtrap in Help Wanted 1, and later returns to fight him. Mike Dreams and Jeremy Dreams. To us on the panel, it made sense that whoever is having the FNAF 2 dreams is the player, who's been wearing the Freddy head. We've seen in the novels that this kind of thing can happen. Objects imbued with memories or emotions can have an effect on their user.
Yeah.
Cassidy World Player. This is a huge theory that I cover more in other videos, but the gist of it is that Cassidy is another spirit inside of Golden Freddy, or another spirit related to the bite victim, who plays a role in helping the bite victim. The player of FNAF World, who goes around helping set up the bite victim's memories, is Cassidy. She's the same Red Bear sprite as in Custom Night, has another talk with OMC, and we know it's in her character to try to remind the bite victim of his past, if the general consensus of the logbook is correct. Glitch Bear Afton. Glitch Bear is the one motivating the player to put the crying child back together in FNAF World. A perfect fit for Afton. Agony Plush.
Yeah, but again, Why Fredbear though? You'd think it'd be more like a bunny or anything, to be more, connected to William.
This is the idea that the crying child has poured so much agony into the Fredbear plush because his life fucking sucks that it's become agonized. The evidence for this comes from real life.
What?
The Sanshi Fredbear plush is labeled as possessed Fredbear plush. And in addition to this, the plush has the same possessed eyes that other possessed entities do. Regardless, I don't think the plush is solely an agony entity based on its shared lines with William. Mike Fritz. If Mike is in FNAF 2, it would make more sense for Mike to come in on the last night and be fired for the same reasons he was in FNAF 1. Vanny Scooper or Fazent Scooper.
Vanny Scooper?
These theories posit that either Fazbear Entertainment, the company, or Vanessa built the scooper below the Pizzaplex.
Okay, so I mean, with how, put together and high-tech this scooper looks, I could see it being made by Fazbear Entertainment purely because, again, in Security Breach, we learn about all that stuff where, it's seemingly, somebody higher up is, covering for Vanessa and, putting her in charge of, security and stuff like that. So there's obviously somebody upstairs looking out for her. Somebody that could potentially be, moving around, company resources to make the stuff beneath the Pizzaplex.
It seems that part of Vanessa's plan is to bring Burntrap something that he needs. If Glitchtrap contains the intelligence of Afton and is guiding Vanny, she could certainly build and use this scooper for her purposes, to give Afton what he needs.
A body.
Remnant and a working body. The entire mall is also powered in a very weird way. I'd recommend watching She's Always Nervous's Remnantplex. Now, the company of Fazbear Entertainment is repeatedly shown to be awful, so I wouldn't put it past them to use dead kid soul-powered juice to run their mall. Edwin OMC. Edwin is one of the oldest characters in the timeline, and
oldest physically. I mean, chronologically, if you're talking about the franchise, he's actually one of the newest. Well, I mean, in the games, because, again, there was, the whole thing with him appearing in the books.
And has built an alligator springlock suit. This theory kind of relies on the idea that FNAF World and basically everything else in the franchise is partially run by or tied into the Mimic Code, which is why this is going to be lower than some other OMC theories. But the panel found it more likely than Henry or Mike OMC. Dave Victim. This is the latest popular solution to Bite Victim's name, and the Foxy Grid. With few errors aside from the answer to one of the questions for the puzzle being a bit iffy. That being, do you have dreams corresponding to I'm scared?
I mean, that was from Dual Process Theory. I remember that one. It was really good.
Bully Cassie Father. This theory posits that the Bonnie Bully from FNAF 4 grows up to be Cassie's dad, and the player of Help Wanted 2. Evidence for this includes the Bonnie mask that looks familiar and is similar to one we see in Curse of Dreadbear, which takes place around 1983, as well as funny haha MatPat colors. MCI 85. There are no MCI theories at the top of this tier list. MCI 85 is the one with the most external evidence outside the games. It has evidence from the novels, interactives, and short stories. But the date 1985 is never given to us in the mainline games unless you think Into the Pit is canon, which, like I said, nobody knows. BV for...
Yeah, again, I mean, granted, it would be so weird if it was.
First. Bite Victim dies in 1983, which is fairly early in the timeline.
Yeah.
And has a death that stands out, presumably not being planned by Afton. But the plush has odd lines, like don't you remember what you saw? People are already spreading rumors about murders, and as far as Afton's motive goes, this makes sense, but the line, I will put you back together, makes it seem like he already knows he can do that.
Yeah.
Charlie first. This is the idea that Charlie's murder is the first death, because it's very unlike the other murders, and Charlie presumably possesses the puppet before any of the other kids possess their suits.
Yeah, I mean, again, that does make the most sense. I mean, again, it was also shown in the movies as well, in the second movie as well. Because unlike literally every other, victim in this franchise, she was the only one that didn't die in an animatronic. In this case, like, she wasn't stuffed inside, or her head wasn't stuffed inside the mouth or whatever. In this one, she died with the animatronic draped over her, with the animatronic having itself come out. William had nothing to do directly with the puppet getting possessed. So this is very much seems like it could be, the accident that kind of, let him discover, that everything was even possible.
A problem with this is the lack of puppet imagery in FNAF 4, as well as what appear to be wanted posters already being present on the side of the pizzeria. They could also be missing posters. Oh yeah, and there's literally a giant security device keeping track of kids. Eliza post MCI. It makes more sense at a first glance for a robot that kills you and drags you into its suit to be built after William already knows that does something.
Yeah.
Greg Human. I'm pretty sure he's a human, but if not, I'll give Tom from Game Theory $214. OMC.
Wait, why? Okay, honestly, why $214 specifically? That seems very oddly specific.
OMC deity. This is the idea that OMC is not any named character in FNAF, but instead a supernatural entity who represents God or death or fate. Almost every OMC theory feels like a bit of a stretch except for this one. Old Man Consequences could literally be seen as another name for the concept of fate itself.
Old Man Consequences, yeah. And, thinking about it, it does work on several levels. Because, just from, a meta, on a meta level, I mean, again, you have to remember, Scott was possibly, most likely still is, a very devout Christian, where, the very earliest part of his career was, making, Christian, movies and stuff like that. So the idea that he would, at some point in the series, even if the series itself wasn't, all about it, would, include some aspect of God or something, does make sense. And again, the whole thing, of it being, of Old Man Consequences being, a greater power, telling whoever the Red Bear is, whether it's Casty or whatever, calm down, rest, let the demon, let the demon do what he does. You've been angry long enough, that sort of stuff. Just trying to help.
It's a similar thing to the debate about if Purple Guy was Phone Guy.
Yeah.
Not every character has to be somebody else. OMC can just be OMC. Blob Storyteller. The Blob is the game's version of the Storyteller tree, a massive structure containing wires that's headed by a white animatronic head. Similar to how the Storyteller in Tales represents something that just generates everything in the mall, or generates a mishmash of ideas, the Blob is a mishmash of different Fazbear iconography. Agony plush babies.
Oh god.
I have no idea what the fuck else these could be, unless you want to argue that Elizabeth has become plushies.
Yeah, she's become a disembodied spirit that can just cause these plushies to just materialize at random.
Blob MCI. If Burntrap truly is the remains of Afton, it's very possible that the Blob is also the remains of the MCI who burnt in the same place. This is only at a 4 out of 5 because of the Funtime Freddy discrepancy. If the Molten Freddy mask were heading this up, it would be higher on the list. Mound Grave. This makes the most sense narratively. It gives a reason for the runaway to be sad, and it's what most people think of when they see a spooky mound alone in the woods. The guidebooks also call this an unmarked grave. Mike Experiments. We know there were FNAF 4 experiments because of sister location, and we know Michael draws Nightmare Fredbear.
Yeah.
Mike Hero. To some extent, yes. Michael rounds out his story by helping put an end to Afton's misdeeds. Princess Quest 4 ending canon. I don't know if I'm allowed to use this as evidence, but J-Top literally says Glitchtrap is dead in his interview with John FNAF. So unless they later come out and say oh, he's just dead in that ending, we're gonna assume this is true. Help Wanted 2, Cassie Dad.
Okay.
Narratively, this makes the most sense for the Help Wanted 2 protagonist. The end of the game is us handing Cassie the mask while we have Bonnie ears. Cassie's dad's favorite animatronic is Bonnie. And then in Help Wanted 2 itself, we see the Bonnie mask, and we use a Faz wrench, which Cassie's dad had. Bars.
Yep.
Shadow and Golden Freddy footprints. Under AFTMM, these are the absolute best interpretations for the Midnight Motorist footprints. Both these animatronics have 3 toes, and Golden Freddy is even shown to literally pull up to people's houses in the movie.
Literally pull up. Again, yeah, it does make sense. I mean, great, it's a little silly, but still.
I'll take a moment to mention Spring Bonnie here. I actually couldn't find Spring Bonnie footprints on the list, but I'd rate it less likely than this, due to there only being 1 set of footprints and the rain being a hazard for William out here.
Yeah, definitely.
Whatever the suit is can probably teleport because of the 1 set of footprints. It's odd that Scott would give the runaway child a bunch of footprints and the animatronic literally just 1. Yendo Golden. There is a weird version of Golden Freddy that teleports all over the place in almost every game. Yendo would fill this role in Sister Location, as the others are already present with the exception of Funtime Chica, unless she's the Springtrap suit. Springlock suit. Burntrap ending canon.
But again, like, why? Why would it just suddenly transform? Like, unless it's just supposed to be, like, analogous to Golden Freddy, because, you know, Molten MCI and stuff like that.
The Blob and Burntrap both appear to be canon, and there's elements of the ending present in Ruin, namely the Pizzaplex being fucking destroyed. Princess Quest ending canon. Same here. Elements of this ending are present in Ruin. Glamrock's Remnant. There is a giant scooper in the basement. Vanessa has the animatronics under her control, and they have a very odd way of randomly getting dirty, disheveled, and being covered in black agonyisms for no reason. Kids are going missing all throughout the Pizzaplex, Gregory says so. They might be being used as a battery. Withered Foxy, Bite of 87.
Oh yeah, another good one.
This interpretation is most supported by the week before, and it gives Foxy a reason to be out of order at the next locations.
Because nobody wants them near them.
Foxy are the same. The primary piece of evidence for this comes in the form of a bloody Fredbear's Family Diner ticket in Pirates Cove. Dead God theory. This one is a bit of a trip, but it's the theory that there's a sort of hierarchy between the spooky staff bots and the storyteller Tangle thing, which they are worshipping or serving. This one would take way too long to summarize, so watch this video. Mimic
I'm sorry, Dead God theory, what? Okay, wait, what? Where? What video? You didn't link it! I want to know this!
Elevator. There's literally a battery pack at the bottom of the elevator for the Mimic to just swipe at. And the dialogue is strangely cut off midway. 5th tier!
Oh god, here we go.
Finally, the 5th tier. This is the tier where the best theories are. The ones with enough evidence to convince most of the panel that they could be canon. Let's get into it. FNAF 1 1990s. MatPat used the paycheck, among other things, to establish a time frame for FNAF 1. Scott Cawthon then went on to keep the pay to date consistent in the paycheck of FNAF 2. Ruin Monster Story. This is the idea that the Ruin Monster Story is about the events of Ruin itself, after the Princess Quest ending. This fits almost perfectly. Logbook Duo. There is clearly a conversation taking place within the logbook. All you need to confirm this is the question, was the party for you, being answered by the altered text, saying it was for me. Nighty Agony. This is the idea that Nightmarion is an agony entity. The Black Tears themselves support this idea, along with the new movie, where Charlie, who was trapped in an emotion of agony and rage after her death, also has black tears. Shadow Nightmare. This is the idea that Shadow Freddy and Nightmare are the same entity. Like Shadow Freddy, Nightmare is also just a palette swap of their golden counterpart. Nightmare Mode is also literally called Shadow Freddy in the files.
No, okay,
this
wait,
was
really?
not removed. Shadow Nightmarion. This posits that Nightmarion is essentially the same entity as Nightmare. This is a fair assumption given the color scheme, the fact that Nightmare Rion fills Nightmare's role in the Halloween update of the game, and the fact that they have such similar voice lines in UCN.
Yeah, I mean, and also, again, like, they could literally be just, the same type of, being, if you want to call them that. Just one's based off Charlie and one's based off whatever, Golden Freddy is.
Both talking about forcing the player to experience death over and over. Shadow Golden and Nightmare both. This idea represents that Golden and Shadow bears are always linked in this series. Some incident surrounding one creates the other. Nightmare and Nightmare Fredbear have the same gameplay mechanic, the same design, obviously.
Yeah.
And Shadow Freddy is similar to Golden Freddy in the ghostly behavior. Shadow Freddy also appears every night in Follow Me except for the night that the Golden Freddy Kid is active, which again adds to the idea that the Golden Freddy Kid may be involved in whatever Shadow Freddy is.
Just different sides of the same coin. Yeah, I can definitely see it.
The Immortal and the Restless Mike. Mike states in the logbook that he relates to Clara from Immortal and the Restless. You could easily read The Immortal and the Restless as a situation where Michael is being gaslit by his father. It helps to interpret the dynamic as more similar to how Vanessa is with her father in the movie franchise. Nightmare Victim. This is the idea that Nightmare Fredbear is either literally the bite victim or represents the bite victim. The most evidence for this theory comes from UCN, where Nightmare Fredbear directly repeats lines that were said to the bite victim in FNAF 4. If you believe that FNAF 4's gameplay is actually dreams had by Mike, then in other continuities, Golden Freddy Kid can also invade people's dreams and interact with them there.
Again, which I just thought of, we also see at one point, I mean, granted, it's the Foxy Kid, but also there's the one scene, with black eyes and black tears as well.
Shatterbeth. Due to the way the scooper works, it seems undeniable that pieces of Elizabeth would have been shattered between the Funtime group. The scooper literally has something to do with taking metal out of the animatronics and putting Remnant into the animatronics. Since all the animatronics get scooped fairly regularly, this means that pieces of Baby's endoskeleton would have been scooped out, possibly churned into Remnant because Remnant involves molten metal.
Yeah.
And then later added to the animatronics by Afton or the scooper when it hits those animatronics. The nail in the coffin is that it's only once Michael assembles all of the endoskeletons of all the Funtimes into one entity that he says, hey, Elizabeth has been put back together. Because it's literally all her pieces in the same entity.
And it's not until afterwards, because she's also mixed with the other souls that she's then ejected and becomes Scrap Baby.
There's a piece of her in every body. Cassidy, the one you shouldn't have killed. UCN is heavily linked to Golden Freddy. There are cutscenes of the Red Bear sprite, a set of cutscenes literally called Bear of Vengeance.
Yeah.
And the final cutscene of the game is Golden Freddy angrily twitching off into the void, which can easily be seen as the reveal that Golden Freddy is orchestrating this whole thing. The name Cassidy was revealed in the survival logbook as the name of the 5th gravestone, and we know who the other names apply to from other continuities. The odd thing about Cassidy, though, is that she does not possess Golden Freddy in the novels, and every mention of her being tied to Golden Freddy has been pulled from the shelves. Cassidy, being the name of the Gold Princess character, was removed from the files, and the Cassidy Golden Kazoo was also nuked. But
I'm sorry. The Cassidy Gold Kazoo? When was that a thing?
That's a conversation for another day. Bite Victim, the one you shouldn't have killed. Again, there's a great deal of evidence that Bite Victim possesses Golden Freddy. So, if Golden Freddy is the vengeful spirit, Bite Victim would be a candidate. The Void ending cutscene of FNAF 4 has similar composition to the Void ending cutscene of UCN. The obvious problem is whether or not William killed the Bite Victim. If he did, that would mean he either pulled the plug himself when Bite Victim was in the hospital, or that the Bite of 83 was an orchestrated event.
Oh, God, honestly, both of those sound really bad. But thinking, the one you shouldn't have killed, I mean, if we take some of the Cassidy logic from the movie, again, she didn't see William as the reason why she died. So if this theory was to be true, maybe in this instance, even though he wasn't like directly involved, maybe the crying child like blames him entirely.
You also have the Fredbear Easter egg, where you death coin Golden Freddy and you can't remove him from the game, instead having Fredbear jump scare you, refusing to let the game end. You can't death coin the person running the show. Currently, even with the evidence to the FNAF 4 neighborhood being an observation area, this is hard to believe, but has garnered significantly more evidence in recent years. The appearance of the one you shouldn't have killed, and the male pronoun, also helps. Springlock banning 85. This is the idea that the Springlock suits were banned toward the end of the first Freddy's time being open. This is why in 1987 they're addressed as spare suits, as they are
used
out
anymore.
of use. This incident is likely tied to Circus Baby's Pizza World due to the direct name drop of sister location. And yes, that is a real world term, but it's the best guess we have for what that location was due to the fact that there's literally a later game named that.
Yeah. We've never, again, like, maybe that's one of those things I'd love to see, because I know Steelwool, they want to make a game that takes place in, you know, Fredbear's or, like, around there. So, I mean, like, having a game, like, because, again, Fredbear's and Freddy Fazbear's were open at the same time. So maybe you can have a game where it not only takes place at Fredbear's, but also at the first Freddy's, like the original one, before FNAF 2.
Mimic sticky notes. We now know that the Mimic, specifically the M2 branch, is copying a child. This makes the abundance of kids' drawings here make sense. The problem is that we don't know why or how the hell the Mimic is drawing these.
Yeah.
The notes are clearly linked to the Mimic because literally right above them you get little pieces of paper talking about how the Mimic's drawn to sound. Molten MCI and Follow Me Extraction. This is the idea that Follow Me is William getting metal for the fun times, or remnant for the fun times. Henry clearly alludes to the events of Follow Me in his Insanity speech, and we know that Molten Freddy has a more combined spirit juice than the rest.
Yeah.
The original spirits are also clearly present in FNAF 6 due to the gravestone ending. Sister location post FNAF 1. Now, this just means that the actual night gameplay of Sister Location happens after FNAF 1. It does not mean that the fun times were conceptualized this late in the timeline.
Again, this one makes a lot more sense to me. Because again, the idea that, like, it could be that, you know, the bunker exists for a longer period of time. It's just that, you know, we interact with it, you know, near the end. And the fact that the idea that, you know, the actual, like, Molten MCI, if it actually did happen, is the reason why, you know, all the animatronics here are going so nuts, because they're being, like, all possessed by, like, parts of the souls, and that's when they, you know, merge and turn into Ennard and all that. Again, that would have to happen, you know, after FNAF 1, because, you know, the animatronics are still intact in that game.
Again, a lot of Sister Location's timeline placement depends on how you interpret Molten MCI, but Follow Me clearly takes place in a run-down FNAF 1 building, where William Afton then destroys the animatronics, and Henry alludes to that putting the MCI souls inside the fun times. If this is the case, it makes no sense for Afton to go here before FNAF 1 is open, have the spirits take revenge on him, get their remnant and put it in the fun times, and then have the FNAF 1 animatronics be repaired and possessed and hunting the player.
Yeah.
Shadow Freddy experiments. Shadow Freddy, or Nightmare, appears on the final night of FNAF 4, after the player has experienced the most amount of agony or fear over the week. We know from Frights and Tales that intense negative emotion can create entities, alter existing entities, or do fucking anything Scott Cawthon wants it to do.
Yeah!
If anything were to cause the creation of an agony entity, it would be experiments deliberately designed to invoke as much fear as possible.
Yeah, again, and like we know agony is supposedly like the dark, you know, counterpart of remnant. Like, it's not the soul, it's the feeling and the pain that's left over. But like the question of like, is it like 1-to-1 where you can only have the one created from the other, or can you have agony created just by itself without a corresponding remnant, like, without somebody else dying?
Security Breach 2020s. Narrow Raven recently made a great video about this that involves the dates for parties on the whiteboards throughout the Pizzaplex. The in-game calendar used to prove 2035 is also a stock asset.
Yeah, of course.
Afton MM. This has been a debate forever,
Midnight
but
Motorist,
the current
yeah.
favor is leaning towards Afton MM due to 5 laps at Freddy's. The minigame is also a lot easier to piece together if it's about the Aftons. You can come up with an identity for every character and everything without much reaching. The Mound, for example, is way harder to identify with random MM. The characterization of the Cheeto Man also fits with that of Afton, and the lone blue house with a sloped roof in the middle of nowhere is similar to the FNAF 4 house.
I mean, and thinking about it again, like the whole reason, like I think I've talked about it before, but not in a while. But like the reason everybody's been always so confused with like, why is he orange if in this game if he actually is William? And it might literally just be because, like, maybe it's purely like a design choice because, the rest of the game is so dark and the rest of the cutscene or the mini game is so dark and gray. Like maybe Scott originally did have it be, purple, but like it was too hard to see against the background.
Another Afton family and another Murray family. These are the 2 main FNAF families currently, and they're definitely meant to be linked due to Davidisms. The entity in the sticky note room seems to be torn between identities, as it contradicts itself in its own ramblings several times. And the table can obviously be seen as the Aftons due to the number of children, one of them missing a head, and one of them literally being Circus Baby, but it also has elements of the Murrays, such as the wife heading up the table. On the note of the characters themselves, though, that will be addressed later on. Logbook between 1 and 3, or logbook during FNAF 3. The logbook is literally a Fazbear Frights prop. Will Speaker and Will Plush. William Afton instructs Michael to put people back together. Toy Chica, who represents Afton in some way, repeats lines that the plush speaks, and Nightmare Fredbear torments Afton and UCN with those same lines.
Yeah.
Afton also has the plush in his private experiment office. UCN Nightmare. Rather than an alternate dimension, UCN is literally just the vengeful spirit keeping Afton alive to torture him in dreams. This is heavily implied by "I will hold you here," and "they try to release us." Mike Dreamer and BV Dreamer.
Yeah, I mean, the idea... I mean, granted, like, actually, yeah, that does make a bit more sense, because I was assumed... I mean, so if you assume that, like, Glitch Trap was, Afton, then him being just trapped in, the his decaying remains, just forced to dream this nightmare, does make a bit more sense rather than, he's passed on, but, like, Cassidy's holding him in this weird little nightmare dimension to just torture him forever.
There's great evidence for both of these. Michael draws Nightmare Fredbear, implying that he knows what it looks like.
Yep.
And the experiment rooms are also literal places. It's interesting, though, that despite Michael responding to the Fated text, Fated is addressing Altered with the question about dreaming. We are also closer to the size of a child in the night gameplay and not a teenager. The main evidence for the bite victim side of this, as of late, is that this room is uncomfortably similar to David Murray's room, who also has a billion other connections and parallels and similarities to the Crying Child.
Unfortunately.
Last thing, I guess, the weird, map in Sister Location shows that Crying Child might be being observed in his neighborhood, alive, at the same time the FNAF 4 experiments are active. We're gonna have to wait to see where Scott goes with this in the next game, because I have a feeling he's gonna tie it together somehow.
Here's hoping. And it's not just, something that's left aside like, the box that never gets touched on again.
Pheasant 70s. This is outright confirmed by Secret of the Mimic. World canon. This is partially confirmed by Scott Cawthon in the Doggo interview. 30 years post-MCI. Fazbear Frights is advertised as an attraction based on the events that took place at Freddy's. It is far more likely that the MCI would have become a legend, as opposed to, say, Mike Schmidt's Wake.
Yeah.
Take cake to the children Freddy's.
What is the? Oh god! Like it's just Freddy standing over her corpse. Why? The only way you could have made this worse is like redesigned her to look like the Family Guy pose.
Look at Tickets to Fun. Eliza pre-MCI. Elizabeth dies on opening day of Circus Baby's Pizza World. The board of that restaurant still respectfully addresses William as Mr. Afton in the opening cutscene, and they have minimal suspicion regarding the design features of the animatronics. They're a bit suspicious, yeah, but would be more so if murders had happened under Afton's nose at a different restaurant like a year or a few months ago. Given that Afton already has to go undercover by the time of FNAF 2 to be the first guard, another commonly accepted theory that is well evidenced due to save them, it would give him an incredibly short amount of time to do the MCI, construct the entirety of the Circus Baby's business, build the animatronics, open the restaurant, and then randomly disappear. See the Unwithered Truths video on this for more information. Also, other continuities, such as the movie right now, allude to Circus Baby being built early.
Yeah.
Cassie Dadbot. He has Bonnie ears. He's the Help Wanted 2 player. Dad Completionist. This is the idea that Cassie's dad is the arcade conspirator. This is well evidenced because the princess literally does recognize him in Help Wanted 2. Just what the arcade conspirator says would happen. Funtime Aftons. The Funtimes represent the Aftons. Funtime Freddy is a bear with a little friend on his arm that talks to him all the time. That's Bite Victim.
Okay.
Circus Baby. Duh. A Foxy. Duh. And Ballora, who sings her song about an empty tomb and somebody hiding inside their walls. Mike set up Happiest Day.
Hi, Ballora.
Mike literally helped set up Happiest Day. Mike Fright Guard. Logbook Fuck You Hudson. Dreadbear Victim.
Dreadbear Victim? What?
Bear is a play on the name Fredbear and has a bunch of stitches on his forehead. The focus of Dreadbear's minigame is giving him life through experiments. Dreadbear is representative of the Bite Victim, not literally the Bite Victim.
Okay,
Cassidy Springlocked. The twitching of Golden Freddy in the UCN Void mirrors the twitching of Springtrap in FNAF 3 when he's been springlocked. There is also the drowning in a red lake imagery that could be a metaphor for drowning in your blood.
Yeah.
Both endings of Help Wanted 2 are canon. This has been addressed earlier in the list. Burn Mimic and Burn Afton. There's a great deal of evidence that Burntrap is part Mimic and part Afton. Honestly, I'm currently leaning towards him being exclusively Afton, and we'll get into why that's the case soon. Vanessa is clearly on a mission to help Burntrap come to power. This is likely why the Scooper and her spray paint are down here. The Mimic being part of Burntrap depends on how Burntrap is conscious. If Burntrap is just Glitchtrap's consciousness given a body, it likely has the Mimic in there somewhere. Glitch both. This imagery from Security Breach is really all I need in this case. A purple spray paint of Spring Bonnie, or whatever this Bonnie suit is, has been added over a pre-existing endoskeleton, implying that the purple man, in his weird ghostly essence, is literally hijacking the system and imposing himself on the code. That's why the endoskeleton is also given rabbit ears. Network Victim. Read about the 0 point field from Fetch. It would take me 8 years to explain this. Charlie pre-MCI. The puppet is already possessed when the other animatronics are given life. It would be very strange for the dead bodies to sit around doing nothing for months to years before the puppet gets there.
Yeah, because at that point, I mean, depending on how the afterlife actually works in this universe, you'd think they would have passed on by then.
Bite Victim experiments. This has already been addressed. Will Stuffed. This conflicts with the Give Gifts Give Life minigame depending on the interpretation, but Afton clearly knows a lot about how to cause a possession in the games, and in every single other continuity, he's the one that's the agent in getting the kids to possess these suits. Bite Victim Receiver. FNAF 3 to World read as a single narrative arc about giving Bite Victim his happiest day. This is incredibly clear and overt in the text of FNAF 4 and World specifically. Edwin Mediocres. Edwin literally has the mediocres, and Stan's Butchatek steals them later. Shadow Bonnie Agony. Same reasons for Shadow Freddy Agony.
Oh, God. Again, like, maybe if, I kind of don't and do look forward to the day if and or when Scott retires, purely because I'd love to see like an actual like one, to see like a dedicated thing actually talking about what the story and plot he was talking about, the entire time was, so we actually know. And two, I'd also just love to see his thought process about how things changed over the years and stuff like that. That'd be fun, just from like a behind the scenes like game development sort of perspective.
God victim. The repetitive imagery of FNAF 4 is one of the strangest things in the franchise, and was clearly important. Golden Freddy has been shown to be able to create hallucinations and alter fucking space-time and other continuities. We also have the fact that events in the real world affect the spirit world. The two are tied in some way. So if FNAF world takes place in the bite victim's mind, which it's commonly agreed that that's the case, then the bite victim's mind and the real world are intrinsically connected. They impact each other. Basically, this theory is that everything the crying child sees in the week leading up to his death, toy Chica with no beak, a mangle toy, a dirty Springtrap looking thing, literally gets fucking projected into reality by his weird reality altering powers that we know he has. How did he get to this house? Why is he teleporting? I have an epic video on this. Please watch. Glam AI. The Glam Rocks act the way they do due to advanced AI personalities.
Yeah.
Wait, that's true. Molten MCI Alter S. This theory posits that the core 4 animatronics are in Molten MCI, while Golden Freddy's spirit is attached to Afton himself. This makes sense due to the Man in Room 1280-isms, and the fact that Afton never loots Golden Freddy, but only the core 4. Help wanted Vanessa. This is painfully obvious. Gregory 46. This is less set in stone now due to recent events, but there is still no better candidate, especially since we can be pretty sure that Gregory broke out of some weird mind control nonsense. Mike Accomplice.
Weird mind control nonsense. That's just the entire franchise, the entire modern franchise right now.
Yes, he is literally doing this in Sister Location and the second movie.
Yep.
This doesn't mean he's a terrible, irredeemable person. He's obviously a victim of abuse that tries to do something right later on. But for at least a time, he's working to help his father. Gregory Possessed. Gregory and Vanessa have had previous interactions before Security Breach. Gregory is hiding out in the Pizzaplex with the Balloon World game, and the Security Breach trailer references 2 people doing Afton's bidding. Elizabeth Room. This would make the most sense if this is a giant family. Fuck you, Tails. Elevator ending canon. This is the only one with an MCU post-credit scene. Fredbear's Singing Show pre-70s. I mean, look at it. Glam prototype. Yeah. Gregory notes in Security Breach that Glamrock Freddy is different from the other Glamrock animatronics. We also literally see a headless Freddy with prototype written on his foot in ruin. Fredbear's Family Diner and Freddy Fazbear's Pizza coexist. Duh.
Actually, you know what? Just stopping for a second and going back to the previous one. That's been one of my personal headcanons, in that, like, the reason why the actual like animatronic, you know, the Glamrock endoskeleton like training program or whatever you want to call it, is like either extremely flawed or extremely slow. Because seemingly, like, the fact that they have all those endoskeletons in the basement that like are seemingly operational but are not used, and yet they're still resorting to using a prototype as one of their lead band members. Like, what's the reason behind that?
Mike Bro. Michael has many connections to Foxy in the logbook, is called an angsty teen, and most importantly, is the son of William.
Yeah.
Afton divorce. Look at these therapy tapes. Mimic baby. John FNAF. Will corpse. There is clearly flesh in Burn Trap, and the rest of the evidence has already been addressed.
Yeah.
God, David. Gregory is clearly meant to be linked to the crying child, who is clearly meant to be linked to David Murray. There are imagery and design overlaps between them that currently serve no thematic purpose, so the panel has decided to take them literally for now as intentional in-universe decisions.
Until, you know, more proof is hopefully shown in the future.
an hour-long video on this.
Yeah,
the
I
End of the
remember.
Truth also has a pretty long one. But for now, Crying Child shares many design traits with Gregory, and David Murray is given the exact same imagery as Gregory with the Security Breach Hill ending. And there we have it. All the major FNAF theories that are still debated in 2025/2026 ranked on a scale of 1 to 5 averaged out across a panel of people who theorize for a living. But I still have one more treat for you. 14 tier. 14 tier is basically just a bag of fun. Most of the theories in here are just huge memes in the community right now. But this doesn't mean they have no evidence. They all just have a unique reputation in the community that elevates them to 14 status.
Okay.
So let's end the video off by having some fun. Scrap Baby MCI. The MCI are inside of Scrap Baby.
What?
Now this sounds stupid because you'd just be like, no, Scrap Baby literally separates from Ennard at the end of Sister Location. So that's just Elizabeth leaving.
Yeah.
But like, the remnant is all mixed together and like churned together into one substance because of the scooper. So does Elizabeth just pull like every molecule of Elizabeth metal out of the MCI metal? And then like if all the metal is mixed and churned together and the fun times are exposed to it, how is Elizabeth taking metal with only her in it and making a new body? This doesn't...
Well, I mean, it wasn't... She didn't leave of her own volition. She was expelled by the other spirits. So I would imagine that, you know, after, you know, being in the one body long enough, they were able to tell that something was different about Vanessa and that, you know, she was, you know, the daughter of Afton or whatever. And basically they kind of expelled everything that wasn't them, i.e., you know, everything that was her.
Makes sense. Balloon Boy victim. By victim possesses Balloon Boy is an absolutely fucking whack theory, but there is some evidence that Balloon Boy represents By victim through the FNAF 3 minigames, Balloon World, and the Curse of Dreadbear Balloon Boy mask literally having a bloody forehead.
Oh, God.
Vanessa Bot. Holy peak. This is the idea that Scott is going to pull a fourth closet and reveal in the last FNAF movie that Vanessa was a robot the whole time. Twisted Mound. This is an old theory popularized by John FNAF. Twisted Ones came out around the same time as FNAF 6, and so a great deal of people expected the mound in the dirt to be revealed as a Twisted Ones animatronic creation. But then that never got mentioned ever again.
Yeah.
Real grief. This is the idea that William is just a broken man and only does what he does out of love and desperation to bring his family back.
I mean, I could see that as, you know, part of his motivation later on, but it's even before the deaths in Secret, even before any of the deaths happen in Secret of the Mimic, like, it seems that he's just a mean and evil and relentless person just for the sake of it. You know, when he starts poaching, you know, Edwin's employees and stuff like that and tries to, well, doesn't try, succeeds in taking his company.
Poor William. Will care. This is probably true in the sense that William would say, yes, I care about my kids. But in reality, William's relationship to his kids is something that 99% of the population would describe as not caring, because he uses them exclusively for his own purposes in other continuities, and like I said, pulls fucking knives out on them.
Yeah.
Tails games, Frights games, and Stitch Line. This was such a popular theory in the community until Secret of the Mimic dropped a fucking nuke on it, and now nobody knows what to do with the books. Andrew, the one you shouldn't have killed. While not impossible, there is less reason to think this now than ever. We have no reason to believe that all roles from the books carry over to the games now. Dream Theory. Scott poked fun at Dream Theory in the FNAF movie, and at the very least, it isn't canon now. Thank God. Mike Trap.
Yeah.
Michael Afton's voice played during the Springtrap cutscene, therefore they must be the same character. Purple.
Honestly, if you honestly believe that, I'm not gonna even mince words. You're an idiot.
Phone.
Purple phone. That's classic.
Why does his hand look like this? Old Man Consequences is Andrew. Who the actual fuck? Rockstar Freddy is the CEO.
What?
Who the actual fuck?
These TDreads. You did say that these were theories that people actually believed in, right?
Hudson Midnight Motorist. Who the actual fuck? Lefty DCI. Who the actual fuck? Oh, wait, that was me and crying out? Okay, my bad. That's Nightmare Own Charlie. This has become an uncomfortable topic of conversation after the second movie, where Charlie is an evil Nightmare-own looking creature that possesses people and has black tears and white dotted eyes. Luckily, Nightmare-own isn't canon until UCN, so we don't got to worry about that in FNAF 4 at least.
Yeah?
Mrs. Afton's CEO. This is the idea
Hi,
that
game
Mrs.
theory.
Afton is the one in charge of the Pizzaplex. The evidence for this, we believe, was actually entirely on the right track. We just had the wrong wife as the culprit because MatPat didn't know F10N4 was a thing yet.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, granted, you know, that theory was made, you know, a couple of years before Secret of the Mimic even came out.
And obviously couldn't have. There are giant black and white wires all over the Pizzaplex and tons of Mimic imagery that I don't have time to explain here. But this is just funny because it seems that MatPat came to the right conclusion with his evidence using this theory, but just literally couldn't get the identity right because it was a character that didn't exist. Charlie post-MCI. Fazbear Entertainment, my poor Charlie 87 believer. Scott has done nothing but dunk on this theory recently. Charlie dies in 82 or 83 in the novels, and then just recently they've slapped 1982 on screen in the movie for her death date.
Yeah.
Then Henry says this was a wound first inflicted on him, but at the same time, entering 1983 in Hub 1 and 2 gets you a puppet plush. I don't even know what's going on. And finally...
How about, here's what we say. It happened, you know, on New Year's Eve, so it happened, you know, as 1982 transitioned into 1983. Then everybody can be miserable together.
The one and only...
14 theory.
Where Narrow Raven used fucking algebra on the high scores of UCN to conclude that Golden Freddy is represented by a locker. Holy peak! Thank you all so much for watching this video, and if you liked it, please subscribe, because this was a huge project.
I have literally never heard of 14 Theory before. Oh god, I might have to look that up just to see what that is. Like, that sounds nuts. But yeah, that is definitely going to be it for now. So yeah, again, like, a lot of those theories, like, especially, you know, I mean, of course, you know, the 14 theory tier is the one that gets all weird, but, like, okay, yeah, but that's definitely going to be it for now. So, yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.